theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Hi, Warren. I got a little question, or maybe it's a big question.
No. Yeah, I get nervous.
How do you feel? Is it important to you, the idea of monogamy?
Oh, that's a really big question, isn't it? Oh, we've only got... How long have we got? My idea of monogamy... I don't have judgment either way. I mean, monogamy works for some people. I love it when it works and it's good. But then at other times it doesn't work, and other models are better for people and more enjoyable. So I'm curious about all sorts of, I suppose, sexual... What's the word for it? What do we call them? Types? I don't know. Yeah,
So when you go into a relationship, and when you start seeing someone fairly seriously, do you have a proper conversation about those boundaries?
Yeah, I think a proper... Always good to talk about things. I like to talk about things, I must admit, rather than keep them bottled up. But, I mean, at first, I'm always into monogamy because I like to explore someone. But, you know... who knows? Things change down the track as long as you talk about it. That's the main thing. But I'm open. What's the word? I'm like fluid when it comes to labels that we put on ourselves. Yeah, I don't. What about you?
So when you start seeing someone, do you kind of have you had like a mutual assumption that it's going to be exclusive somehow before you decide to actively
talk about it first. I don't like assumptions because I think that assumptions can be, you might think that you understand what is, what's happening or what's agreed, but if you don't talk about it, how do you know? You know, and then, I don't know.
So if you don't talk about it, does it mean that you assume that you are not exclusive?
I don't know. I don't think you can assume anything, really, can you? Why wouldn't you talk to your partner about it? Maybe it's uncomfortable. Someone just texted in saying relationship models. Thank you so much. That's the word. They're the words we were looking for. Relationship models. So I don't, Suzy, in terms of relationship models, I don't know. It's up to the individual, who you're with, what's working, what's not working, what your needs are, all those sorts of variables. I don't think you can...
Are you a very jealous person? Like if you're with someone, even, kind of slightly serious, do you require them to be only with you?
For me, the jealousy comes with the heart and the... I think we've spoken about this before. I feel like I have and if you've got kids in the car, turn your radio over to the easy listening station for 1 minute. I have this view that that I have two types of sex. There's mechanical sex, and there's intimate, connected sex, and I like that. That's my preference. I'm more cerebral, so for me that's my priority, and I can get that from one person.
And then that's when you start feeling jealousy sometimes.
So if that goes, that's when I get a little bit jealous and insecure. But in terms of the physical, I don't know, it's like having a cup of tea. Means nothing. Next. Get out.
So does that mean that when you start feeling real feelings for someone, you require them to be one-on-one with you?
Well, not necessarily physically, but certainly emotionally, from the heart and the brain. I like that fidelity. I'm really big onto that. If I'm with someone, I'm with you. That's it. You're my priority, and I'm very protective of the relationship. That's how I nurture my relationships. And if the physical's part of it, it's part of it. But if the conversation happens and down the track it changes, that's okay, as long as that isn't compromised. That's how I feel about it. That's that's where I think I draw the line, is that cerebral sort of connection. What about you, Suzy?
That's fairly mature, isn't it? I haven't been in a relationship for almost 20 years, so no, I don't know. I'm just curious.
So, but I mean, ideally, what would your preference be?
Ideally is that people live really free lives, even if they're in a relationship, even if they're in love. Ideally, I imagine I would like to believe that I allow the person to be free to explore whatever they want and have the faith that the sanctity such a strong word, the sanctity of the relationship doesn't get damaged from it. I believe it's possible. That you can have, dalliances outside without compromising too much on the relationship. I'd like to think that, but, I don't know. I understand jealousy is sort of a feeling, it's sort of an emotion that's hard to control. So ideally it's more mature, but I don't know if I do fall in love with someone again, I don't know how I'm going to be able to cope with that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cope with that, even though I wish I could.
Suzy, I think the other thing too is, it depends on discussions, like I said, and having that open conversation. And if you can't have that open conversation, then you've got to step back more and say, well, why can't we? What's wrong? Why can't I talk openly with my partner? What am I nervous about? And maybe there's room for counselling or help there as well. But for me, it's about, I think the jealousy is there if I've got some underlying insecurity maybe, and I'm worried about that. They might fall in love, they might this, all those sort of little voices. But I think if you're confident and you know your partner and you trust them, and you trust that whatever you agree to, you might have rules. I don't know how each couple or each person does it, but as long as you know that you trust them and they won't break those rules, they will always put you first as their partner. I think for me, that's where the confidence would come from, is knowing, we're rock solid. They can do what they want. I don't care. No one's going to get this relationship that I've got, you know what I mean? And feel secure in that sense. I don't know if that's idyllic, but for me, it's all about talking about stuff and getting to that point.
That's very grown up, Warren.
Thank you, Suzy. There's a message that came in saying, love this conversation. Great to hear the discussion. Keep up the great work, Warren and Suzy. That's Bruce and John in Dalesford. We've got someone in Dalesford listening as well. We had Shepparton before. Rural Victoria. There you go, Suzy.
Wonderful, thank you.
It is an important conversation to have. But also, having said that, I've in the past in relationships, I haven't necessarily had the confidence. I was very insecure and had the confidence to talk about things and I think for me, I fell into the trap of, I don't want to say anything because I'm lucky I've got them. Not feeling good about myself. What if I lose them? I'll keep this relationship at all costs, which of course the costs are too great when you do that. But that's what I've done in the past is I've had these deep insecurities. And I've let them rule me and stuck with people who I shouldn't have stuck with, who it wasn't a good relationship because I was so scared that, no one else would have me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of this stuff we learn from bad experiences, right? Because we're not taught it from a young age. Like we feel like it's inappropriate to teach young people relationship models other than really, really traditional kind of marriage-based models. So we kind of learn from bad experiences, unfortunately. But hopefully the world is changing. As we can see in this movie this week, the world is changing.
And the movie is, another message, Suzy, all the different options have really complicated the dating apps. That's true. I keep having to look things up. I get what you're getting at. Suzy Wrong, we're talking about the movie JIMPA. Tell us about it.
Non-binary teenager Francis and their mother Hannah travel from Adelaide to Amsterdam, where they visit JIMPA, Francis' gay grandfather who is about to retire from a career as an academic. Francis decides to stay for a year, hoping that immersing in their grandfather's uncompromisingly queer existence would make them feel more at home in their new identity as a 16-year-old queer person. The Australian film JIMPA is now available to rent or buy on your favorite platforms. It is a quiet, tender film based on writer-director Sophie Hyde's own family life, starring award-winning actors Olivia Colman and John Lithgow, who, although give British accents to Australian characters for no apparent reasons, are otherwise wonderfully authentic in the film. Along with Ord Mason Hyde, who is a real-life, non-binary offspring of the filmmaker, we are treated to some rather sublime performances in what is essentially a meditation of family and legacy. There is very little drama in JIMPA, which might make viewing a little challenging for some, but its realistic emotions and its detailed explorations of queer life for both the young and the old are valuable. And the contrasts between two generations are for me very engrossing. Watching Frances figure things out about their own gender identity and sexual orientations as a person preparing to step into adulthood is gratifying. I just think it's wonderful that a new generation is showing us how to live beyond old established boundaries and in the process help dismantle instruments of prejudice. And seeing the elderly JIMPA insisting on a life of freedom until the very end as an unapologetically gay man, one who surrounds himself with all things queer and wonderful, is equally satisfying. Frances gets to experience love and acceptance from a very young age, free to be their fullest self, because the blueprint had already been set by JIMPA decades earlier. Warren, did it bother you that not a lot happens in the movie?
Look, I think it did bother me a little bit, but at the same time, I think the message here is loud and clear. In fact, another SMS came in saying, and this is basically summarising what I was going to say, these insights are what is lost when the generations are split up. And when I was watching this movie, the JIMPA, I couldn't help but think about, the queer generation gap that we have. So I suppose I am only speaking from my experience as a gay man, is I feel like we're in separate generations. We're not necessarily talking to each other. And I don't think that's necessarily, and maybe social media has made it worse, I don't know. But even when I was, when I was a young kid, when I was coming out, I didn't have a lot of older gay men to talk to, and I wish I had. I had lots of role models to talk to on how it works, what you do, discrimination, going through navigating workplaces, all this sort of stuff was really, and for a lot of it, it's just, you're just learning yourself and flying blind. There's no rule book. There's no manual book. The only manual I got was, different sex positions or something that I had bought in a brown paper bag. Seriously, there wasn't anything back then. And I feel like that text sums it up well. These are the conversations that we can get by talking not only to older people, but older people also talking to younger people and finding out what they're interested in, what they're going through in life. I feel like we're not in that. I don't know. And I feel like also we tend to we don't celebrate older people. We rest on the hard work that they've done to get where we are, but we don't sort of like, thanks. We don't really acknowledge it and celebrate it enough, and I think we should. I really do. And I think there's always a bit of passion here, Suzy, because so many of us aren't here today, and we know the reasons why, the whole HIV epidemic, etc. They're not here today, and a lot of work was done by them fighting for their lives and things. Not only that, but all throughout history. And I think that by not talking to other generations, we lose all that, and we lose that ability to come together. And when we come together, I feel like there's so much power. But when we're separate, it all dissipates. Suzy.
I think that's a very Western problem, the kind of generation chasm. I think if Australian culture can shift a little bit more to be like other places. I think like most other places all over Africa and Asia, there's just a lot more value. We just value older people a lot more than in Western cultures. And in reference to what you were saying, I think I've experienced quite a bit of a shift since becoming a trans person these last, 1.5 decades or so, that, community looks and feels a bit different. You know, I think when you are a gay man, a lot of your community is structured around who you're going to sleep with and who you find sexually attractive. That plays such a big part of what community looks and feels like.
I know.
But if you're a trans person, it's not really based around that. It's more based around how you navigate the world, the challenges you face. Obviously, gay people have their own challenges, but trans people are much better at kind of coming together, bonding around those things, and therefore the generation gap isn't quite as severe, because you know a lot of the challenges that you face as a trans person, whether you're young or old, are still very similar. You know, I'm still often invited to go to panel chats and things like that, obviously quite formalized. But I'm always very happy to be invited into conversations with, people that are 2-3 generations younger, and they listen to what I say, I listen to what they say, and it's rewarding, and hopefully we help each other, like in the film.
I mean, yeah, and that sounds quite refreshing, because I do feel like, and it's not our fault, but I feel like, we get our validation from the sex. All of a sudden we feel good after growing up being told we're faulty or something's wrong with it. Feels good. So we talk about it. It's all we talk about. But that's it. There's other things in life
so maybe,
as well.
Maybe gay men need to be a little bit more conscious about their circles, and then not be so kind of trapped into, do I find these people attractive, or do I want to know these people intimately? That's why I spend time with them. Maybe, you should try to broaden out your circles a bit.
Another message. Look at the pile-on we've witnessed with Madonna performing this week. The ageism is hideous. She was a trailblazer and deserves respect. I couldn't agree more, honestly. So when ABBA brought out some new songs, I think it was 2021, or when was it? Well, couple of years ago, they brought out a new album.
Yeah.
They're in their late 70s. They brought out a new album.
Yeah.
One of the announcers here said, "Oh, they sound like old people." And I pulled him out. I said, "Well, they are old people." And they're singing. What is wrong with old people singing? And like, this went to air, he said that. And it really annoyed me. I thought,
personally, I am really, really excited about the next 2-3 months of just more and more new Madonna stuff coming out. It's been quite a few years, and we are ready for it.
We're ready for it. And, those who sit behind their social media and do pylons and things like that, well, let me tell you something that someone said to me when I was in my 20s. You will get old one day. And trust me, you do get old. And it's harder when you can't sit in your armchair and type nasty comments about people. So don't do it now, because you will get old as well. And you'll wish that you never said it.
And you'll be lucky to look anything like her in your 40s.
Exactly.
To be honest.
Exactly. We all age. Suzy Wrong, what are we watching next week?
Half Man premieres on Stan later this week, with a wedding being disrupted by an estranged brother. Half Man explores brotherhood, violence, and intense fragility of male relationships. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.